Hi everyone, it's Mr. Fix again. Just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on what I've been up to for the past few days. Been winding a lot of coils, and I want to show you some of them and what I'm up to. Can welcome to my workshop. It's basically I got my rig up there on the table, and let's see, this is what all the work's been about. And I was a little presumptuous when I said I got all 16 of them done. Actually, I got 16 of them looking like this, which all of the north poles are on the inside, all the south poles are to the outside, and they're bipolar, meaning there's actually two circuits going through each one. So that I'll get back to later as far as why there's two. But I did them all 20, 26 gauge, and they're hmm, let's see, set in epoxy, so they're actually structural. What I had done in the previous incarnation was I had tried putting them inside one of these fittings, which, screws right into the face of this. So I had something that was configured, oh, let's see, something that looked like this with the magnet, inside of it, so I could adjust it. But the problem that I was having was that I could only make a coil this big, and it couldn't quite even get to the end. Now, I was getting about a half a volt out of these when I ran the setup. So as you can see, just for basis of comparison, there's quite a difference. Now, I tried this last night with a with the voltmeter, and just by bouncing a bolt off the end of one of these, I actually got it up to a 2-volt spike, which I think is astounding. So even if we don't have the whole, quantum draw, I think I could probably close the loop just with 2 volts on each output, times 16. That's, I mean, what the heck? That's 32 volts right there. So that's not what I'm going for, but that's neat. Very neat. Now, what I'm going to do today, just for the fun of it, is these will be the output coils, and they're 10 gauge. And the idea being, it's basically a Tesla coil, which I've read many times. If you do them in reverse, that's where you get the big power. So what I'm doing is I want to energize these inner coils. They may actually draw from the quantum field by themselves. I've got to do an exciter coil and the big capacitor, which, at least theoretically, may eliminate the need for one of these. But I'm going to go that route anyway. I just noticed that these have exactly 8 sides on them. So I'm going to mount this on one shaft or the other, and then do the old-fashioned automotive ignition system with a set of breaker points and the condenser. Now that doesn't do the sharp field that Tesla was talking about, but in one of those videos that was posted by AG 1969, which I saw Ab Guy was just discussing, he talked about a rotary spark gap, which I thought was a really good idea because I had already thought of that. But the reason was a little bit different. It's actually dual. I was thinking of timing this. So picture this with getting the voltage or getting the points to fire 8 times. All right. As you'll notice, the fields are going to be, um, there's only 4 blanks, or these neodymium inserts that I made. So what I'm going to do is drill through both housings and at every point on the wheel, I'm going to put, like, let's say, a brass bolt through it, okay, at two different heights for the, I'm going to do it that so there'll be a top one and a bottom row, and I'll put it at the beginning of each one. Or in other words, so this one will have a top, then the next one will have a bottom, and top and bottom. So what'll happen is I'll wire it so every other one gets fired on each one. But what this also does is when this is spinning up to speed, it will give a spark, which I'll time with the points to hit that bolt at exactly the point. And that should give me an extremely abrupt DC um, pulse, which is what's required for this. So that's basically where I'm going. Then off to the side, I think I'm probably going to add to this sucker. The picture for, let's say, the quantum energy generator and other things, they have a tall coil, I think almost a Tesla coil. I'm going to take more of this wire. I've still got quite a bit left over here on my spools. And I'm going to wind around a pipe, a stack. Picture maybe a 2-inch pipe about yay tall, wound from top to bottom. And I think that's where it draws in. Now, I'm going to have to work a little bit on figuring out the exact wiring, but right now I'm just making the parts, and then I'll figure out, connecting what to what. What I did figure out on the original picture from the drawing is that what they had done is they mounted each magnet on the rig like this, and then it went over the top and ran in the opposite direction on the other side. What I'm probably going to do is just run to the bolt that holds it in the container, and then do the opposite on the other side, okay, with them all. And then what I was realizing was that to wire it that way, the way it was shown in the original picture, is that they would actually cancel each other out. But what I realized is that what the connection for the output would actually be in the middle. So that bolt will also have a takeoff. So I'm thinking every other one will be its own circuit. In the original picture, it had 8 circuits coming off dual sets on each side. I think instead I'm going to do 4 circuits on one side, 4 circuits on the other side, and then wire them together. So um, it'll be the same with the inner coils. There'll be, uh, 8, well, actually with them all linked together, it's going to have only like 2, when you get right down to it, 2 fields, and it'll be the, basically alternating current. So what I'm trying to do now is, with all those coils, I measured them out to the exact ohms, which actually comes to like a wind or two. So they're electrically identical. Now I'm doing the output coils, and so they're electrically identical. That way I can do a whole bunch of parallel circuits between all those coils. And that should work. I'm going to try initially, okay, is to wire it up with the automotive coil. At least that won't be something that can kill you. And it probably is enough to have an effect in that in reading the quantum energy generator blueprints, those fine coils are supposed to produce about 10,000 volts. And then the larger coils, or the thicker diameter, brought it down to 120 or 240. So I'm going to go with that basic premise and see what happens. If I need to bump up the voltage, well, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Okay, that may be even some way to modify it to get more output than I was originally getting. Um, so at any rate, right now I'm just taking my automotive wire and wrapping it around a bolt to create a spring, and then wrapping it around those coils, by putting it in and getting it that so it actually fits tight around each of those coils, and doing exact measured lengths, they will all be electrically the same, and I can do a lot of parallel circuits. So as far as Bendini's concerned, I kind of fell asleep with him in my ear on that playlist. That and combined with some of the other stuff, I look at it almost this way, almost like an immersion in learning a new language. Like if you just like hypothetically, if I just showed up in a Spanish-speaking country and just listened to Spanish-speaking people all the time, I would eventually learn how to speak Spanish. Well, I'm going to be doing that while I'm doing this, with all of these talking heads as far as how to make this stuff work and get up on the jargon, which is basically a foreign language to me, and try to comprehend these longitudinal fields and latitudes and all this other stuff. I think coming up with that um, vocabulary, but more importantly, the concepts behind them, because I actually visualize stuff better than I think it through or do the math. That's not going to happen here. I'm just trying to make everything, the same, symmetrical and everything like that. Coming up with ways to engineer all this stuff is actually quite a stunt. You should have seen me with my drill and my epoxy and spreading the epoxy on the windings while I'm winding it, and finally, when I get so many coils on it, clipping an ohm meter on it, and then finding which part in the wire as it's coming off the spool made it, the exact. I was the ohms aren't that important, but it was like a 13.2. I was coming up with the number on my ohm meter when it's set to 200 ohms, or I don't even know what the numbers mean, but I did make sure they were all reading exactly the same. So I think I'm going to do the exciter coil um, in a uh, oh man, it'll have let's say the same wavelength as those coils. I'm going to do it in a multiple of those coils. That's so the capacitor can charge that. I think that's actually where you're drawing in the quantum energy field, and then have that dump into the coils, that are on the wheel. And with everything else that's going on is more to, basically explain, but that's just the brief overview. So I've got like many, many, many days to go on this. And they're not going to all happen in a row. At some point, I've actually got to, pay the taxes, pay the food bills, pay the utilities, and things like that. Maybe have something of a life outside of here. But for the next, tomorrow's Easter, I'm probably not going to do too much on that. I probably should do a little family time because I'm such a good guy. But I'm going to do a full court press as far as I can with these coils and get them all wrapped, all epoxied, and then got a slightly larger one, but take a hole saw and line them up exactly with what's there. I got extra fittings there just to use for pilots. I'm going to screw them into the hole and put the pilot bit right through it, and then blow it through both sides with the wheel removed, and then probably lay it down on wax paper and epoxy it in from both sides. Get the faces internally perfectly smooth, and then rebuild the whole thing again with the coils in place. And then I got a bunch of those little mounting strips that you get from Radio Shack with the little screws in it. They're all over my other motor, and start putting the connectors on and soldering and all of that stuff. That's days of work all by itself. And then I got to do a jigamariggy for the points, and I got to mark out that wheel and the housing for the spark gap, spinning spark gap or whatever. Now, I was encouraged though from listening to some of what I heard last night, in that I seem to be right on track with the basic philosophies of Tesla, and I'm doing whatever I can to literally get inside his head, to think like him, to perceive things like him. I think that's where it's going to come from. We were talking. It was suggested to just tune into the Akasha records and draw it right out of the universe. And I was thinking along those lines for the last year. I figured, this has been done. Other people have done it, even though that knowledge is being kept from most people. I think, tapping into the quantum field, the consciousness, and what is, how the universe actually works, you can very quickly come up with the answers as to how it works. So it's a process going forward with it, and just want to say hi, have a good weekend. All right, take care, bye bye.